Hey everybody, Dan here for Comic Frontline, and we are going to do another indie review. And in actuality, we have YEET, okay, number 31. Now, in my previous review, I told you guys about getting issue 28, 29, 30 as a sample from YEET, and then I started my subscription, which started with 32, and there was that gap, and I had to follow up and get YEET 31, uh, which they were nice enough to send uh, quickly so that I can give you my thoughts on another issue of YEET. So this is 31, the Halloween special. You can see front and center there is the Black Fury. And if anyone saw the last review, I saw the skull and crossbones and jumped to the idea of Black Terror. It's actually the Black Fury, which is a different character. And there you can see he is surrounded. This is a Halloween special. You can see he's surrounded by what might be considered the core group of the Universal monsters, with Dracula, Mummy, Frankenstein, and we got this dude over here in the corner. He seems to be like, maybe he's YEET's own Alfred E. Newman type of guy. That's a double negative. Let's see. Oh, he's referring to this. I ain't afraid of no ghost. Yep, that is a double negative. That is correct. Yeah, let's see. I kind of looked inside. I know there was something about there being a number of covers. So this Storm Owl cover, I believe, is on each issue of 31. But then there were variants where this is the flip cover of some of the issues, and some of the issues had this. Let's see if I can get it here on camera. That cover there, Journey into YEET, which another issue had a Journey into YEET cover as well. So depending on which one you got either, like I said, you always got the Storm Owl cover, which I have upside down. You always got that one, but this one is one of the variants. And I believe, this Storm Owl, it says, even though it says YEET Presents, I'm guessing that is the flip cover, and this will be your kind of main cover. So I will start in this direction in reviewing the book. Storm Owl almost seems like it was perhaps it's a longer story than the other. It almost seems like it was published as its own thing at some point, perhaps. This issue of YEET started out with, okay, that is photos turned into comics, which is called Fumetti. Okay, and Marvel actually did a book, the Marvel Fumetti book. Just maybe it was a one-shot or something. But that's what that is called when you see photos and they had the word balloons. I guess it was kind of an ad for YEET. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And I'm guessing it's to the people producing YEET in that adventure. All right. So then we went into this story here, Cardos, Private Eye. Okay, and I believe this is the character Cardos right there. And that's giving you a look into the art a bit. Okay, it is kind of a gray wash, we would call that, a black and white with tonal values. Okay, grayscale, gray wash. And, well, YEET is a black and white publication, and I believe they are doing something in color in conjunction with another publisher. So maybe we will see some color comic offerings from YEET in the future. I didn't want to get it wrong who they were dealing with for that. I think it was in the editorial page. Yeah, I don't see it right off the bat. But like I said, I believe there's some color version that might be available through a going through another publisher at some point. So, all right, back to Cardos. So this story dealt with a priest and seemingly a crooked priest, which does seem a little popular these days, to have the villains always being like priests or cops, which I guess is a twist that people jump right in with. It's almost a stereotype at this point. I mean, you'll see a show like Gotham where, like, aside from Jim Gordon, everyone's crooked. Where in real life, hopefully, I mean, these instances certainly occur, but we can't ignore that there is a flip side to that where, there are some good priests and cops. You're going to have a good electrician, a bad electrician, a good real estate agent, an evil real estate agent. I mean, every walk of life, unfortunately, those priests and cops and politicians are supposed to be, politicians, I guess, is more debatable, but I guess because they're supposed to hold offices that are in charge of enforcing morality, that's why I guess, they are, I guess, criticized more. But at any rate, I digressed a bit. That's your priest there, who's part of the story. And yeah, overall, the art style was good. As I said, you had that ink wash, which led to some good depth within the art. So, yeah, overall, seemed like they left it open for some more developments. Okay. Then we had story Post-Mortem by Greta Fantine. Okay, and this was a nice art style as well. This is a bit smoother. Okay, the other one was a little of a scratchier style. This was a bit more smoother, polished type of art style. And it was a pretty short story there. And I guess somewhat, I don't want to, I guess, give away the ending or anything like that, but it was, well, within 4 pages, it's going to not be very nuanced, very direct in what they were saying, but like I said, a nice art style, a period piece, and yeah, overall, I would say that was a good one. And the next is a story by Robert Kroll, art by Mary Perrin. This was The Accidental Hitchhiker. from the Journal of Gardner Bailey. So this was a prose story with some illustrations. Okay, it opens up talking about the story of, I guess, almost like urban legend of a woman passing a hitchhiker every 20 miles. Her car breaks down, and then the hitchhiker uh, kills her. And so that's like the main character of the story is kind of narrating that story, and then goes into a exploit that he had himself in picking up this hitchhiker unwillingly due to being held up by gunpoint. Um, and then the story takes off from there. And, you know, sometimes if you have a lot to do and a lot to read, you look at a prose story and you're kind of like, woof, you know, but I wanted to give it a read, do my due diligence in reviewing this book. And yeah, it flows nicely. It's something that is well written, so you can get through it. And overall, uh, it has entertainment value. So that was good. Now this story, okay, Dr. Demonical, and you could see some of the art right there. Dr. Demonical, okay, well, as the story title, Sins of the Father. Another priest makes an appearance, but it doesn't seem he's really villainized in this story in the same way. So there he is, actually performing somewhat of an exorcism. No, I don't want to give away the ending, but I just want to show everyone. Oop, there's there he is, Dr. Demonical. See, Dr. Demonical? It's kind of like the logo there. And I thought this story was very well written. You know, and I'll show this panel right here. You know, what I'll say is that, you know, YEET takes submissions and, you know, is varied in style. Okay? Now, in this respect, the art is, you know, a bit simplistic. And I'd say that this is here a guy who's a great writer, who perhaps, I'm seeing if it's the same writer or artist, because most of, no, story and art, yeah, Aaron Sasson, lettering, Brian Cole, and the lettering's very well done. Is this the one? No, there was another story where they did, you know, Brian did a great job here. On occasion, I think there was one story in here where it was capital I's all throughout, which I guess if you're just a fringe comic reader, maybe that's not going to jump out at you. As a veteran comic reader, sometimes if it's all capital I's, that kind of like jumps out as you as wrong. Usually in comic book lettering, like I, when you're saying, you know, yourself, like me, or I'm, you know, any other forms of I, it's going to be that capital I. But for the most part, you're going to use a lowercase I, which in comic font is just going to be that single line, which could be a lowercase l for all we know. But yeah, I would just, and again, this is not reflective in this story because Brian did it correctly, but I would just, I know it's easy to just put on caps lock and, I've lettered, I think around 25, no, well, like 35 comics myself. So I know how it is. Maybe someone just wants to put on a cap lock and get to it, because all comic lettering is mostly caps. But it does kind of come off as unprofessional if you have the capital I's in the middle uh, of the story, within the words, and even with like a word like it, even if it's, what happens is if you're starting a sentence, maybe your script is in, Word or whatever, and you have a capital I to begin the sentence, like international, or if you're using it as a name that begins with I or something. So in the script, you have it as a capital I, you give it to the letterer, he's just cutting and pasting pretty much sometimes. Doesn't change your capital I to a lowercase I, and then you end up with capital I's where they shouldn't be in the comic. But all right, getting back to Dr. Demonical, I'd say that this is self-publishing. This is to some degree, perhaps even hobby, over doing it for a living. So in that respect, Aaron might have said, let me do my own art. But like I said, his art, his writing talent outstrips his art talent. So that if he had the funds or whatever, or if he just met up with a collaborator, his great writing would be a little suited well to having some improved art. Um, so, but like I said, because of the great writing, uh, and if you're a little flexible in your appreciation of different art styles, it's still a good tale. Uh, all right, now here's a very Lovecraft Halloween. Okay, with this creature there as the main character, I will say that I do not follow Lovecraft. I know of Cthulhu, and that's basically it. Um, so I think while the art and the story overall seemed okay, or well done, um, it wasn't really something that I was entirely following, since there was a number of references. But yeah, we do get a little. I think this is very well drawn. That Cthulhu in the closet over there. Um, but I guess it's kind of taking these creatures and almost putting them in a regular world setting. Um, so overall, it was very interesting. Again, art was well done. It's just not something that I was going to fully follow. Um, which brings us to the next story, The Black Fury. Did I mention the credits for the Lovecraft? Let's see. Often in YEET, I've seen that it is at the back of the story, and I don't in this instance see credits. I do see a art signature there, but that's I'm not sure of the credits on that one. Same thing here, I think, with the Black Fury story. Oh no, that does have credits right here. Setup and payoff: Mike Jones. Pencils and inks: Eddie Morgan. Script and lettering: Tom Ors. Okay, so that was the Black Fury credits. See a lot of detail in the art right there. I might say that the anatomy could use a little tweaking, but pretty cool superhero style there. That's a nice pose. I like the way he's rendering the black with highlights on the costume. And so Black Fury, it's a short tale. And it's kind of like this was more almost a gag strip. The gag strips, as we know, usually one panel gives you a gag strip. This is a multiple page, 3-page story, but it does kind of set you up for a little bit of a gag. This is a nice shot of Black Fury right here. Okay, so apparently he's playing a big role within YEET. We see a number of things with him. I think they had actually too many pinups, they said, in this book. So in this Cost of Paper comments, they're kind of like their editorial page. They showed, like I said, that other cover and this pinup here, which I thought was very cool. Black Fury and Storm Owl, kind of like a stamp. Oh, there's a credit there. Mike DeStasio. So he did a very cool job with that. I don't know if he's the artist on Storm Owl, because again, we get the flip book, now we get the Storm Owl. That's a pretty cool cover right there. Fighting some thugs. What's he using? Oh, no, that's another guy trying to hit him with like a electric baton. These thugs are kind of teched up a little bit. Maybe they are kind of like Kirby meets a Thunderdome, or what's it called? Road Warrior. Maybe in that vein. That's a nice cover. And, orange and brown. Kind of good color choices. Kind of throws off the big two fans who have to compare every hero to every indie hero to one of their own. I'm sure they'll try to struggle and find out who he is in their mind, but we know who he is. He's Storm Owl. Okay? Accept it. They're indie heroes. They are not all copies of your beloved big two characters. They're kind of like a psychedelic inside cover here with Storm Owl. See, so this says in the back, this is part of YEET Presents Storm Owl, but it says in the indicia, Storm Owl Volume 1, Issue 2. So that leads me to believe again, we had this kind of printed as its own thing. Okay, Mink and Salazar presents Storm Owl. So Mink I've seen in the editorial page as one of the people who run YEET. I'm guessing Salazar is the artist. Yes. Written by Jason Mink. Art by Eric Luna Salazar. We both do a great job. And in actuality, I'm saying it's Road Warrior or something like that. But it's actually, those guys are all teched up like that because it's, I can't make it off on the camera, 2080 AD. So the year 2080. We just hit 2020, so 60 more years. We'll all see if storm owl appears in the world, and if things are looking like this. All right. So I said it's a pretty cool story. Kind of jumps into the fact that storm owl um, in this story is sort of a legacy hero, and the fact that there was a storm owl, and then there's a male and female, I think they're brother and sister perhaps, who come across, I guess, the remains of his lair, and I believe they think they're giving him like some medication to help him recover from something that happens within the issue, and then that gives him the heightened abilities of Storm Owl. He dons a costume. She's kind of playing the what is that in Arrow? Felicity. I forget her last name. Snow. So Felicity, or the Oracle in Birds of Prey. She's kind of like the command base, as Storm Owl is like out there kicking butt. And then I think they do go into a little bit of the origin of them. See, that's the brother and sister right there. Or, I think they're brother and sister. Unless, don't think they're a couple. I think they're brother and sister, right? I forget at this point. But, yeah. This is touching on the origin of the male as Storm Owl. And like there's nice detail in the art. I think the composition is very well done. I especially liked this panel here showing, how the tech of the Storm Owl costume kind of interfaces with the user. So this is kind of like a X-ray look into the Storm Owl costume. Let's see. And like I said, it's a more sizable story than some of the other ones we saw up front. And it's a cool little look at Storm Owl right there. So he's got some wings under his armpits and some blades that pop out of his wrist. So overall, very cool design. Okay. Then we had a story called Moppy by Brian Cole and Joe Wong. Anytime there's no delineation of who did what, you tend to think that Brian Cole would be the writer and Joe Wong did the art and perhaps to that end even the lettering. Although for a number of years I was a writer, then I just had the artist listed. I was doing the lettering, but rather than name myself twice in the credits, I figure we are writers and we write with words. So, if there's a separate letter, I'll definitely put it in. But sometimes for the aesthetics of not having, names doubled up, whatever, I would just leave it as myself being the writer. So, but I'm guessing Brian Cole's the artist and Joe Wong did all the visuals. We'll say that. It's a science fiction tale. Again, another one set in the future. I think it's even beyond 2080. I would have to imagine with this intergalactic travel. Okay, that's a kind of a well-drawn spaceship. Deals with the crew finding an unmanned ship, and that does seem to have a robotic dog that is activated upon them entering the ship. See that? I think they call him Moppy because maybe I can explain that real quick by showing another little illustration. Apparently that robot dog is going to come into focus. Wait for the camera to do so. Perhaps not. But the robot dog does a lot of mopping. Um, and I'll just say that the story takes a twist toward the end. But yeah, I like this art. Um, kind of is reminiscent. I mean, maybe it's just the black and white that I'm looking at. It's kind of reminiscent of art style that you'd see perhaps in the black and white explosion of the 80s from like a company like Eternity, perhaps, or Malibu back then. Um, but yeah, it was an enjoyable tale. Uh, and again, it was a more sizable. Like it seems like they put the two more sizable stories on the Storm Owl side of the flip book, and then the Yeet Halloween special side of it was more like shorter stories. Um, but in addition, on the Storm Owl side, you also had some pinups. Okay, and we had Black Fury here encountering again Frankenstein and Dracula. This was done by Fred Hembeck, who longtime comic readers would recall Fred Hembeck. I think they even had Fred Hembeck Destroys the Marvel Universe. Did a regular little feature back in the DC Letters page as well. Always had a distinct style of doing characters. I believe he just does a lot of commissions these days. And apparently one right here for YEET. Eddie Butler did this Black Fury. Again, Black Fury is almost like the mascot hero of YEET. Okay, so that was a very cool pinup. Alan, I'll say Spinney, because there's two N's. Again, a little more of a scratchier style, kind of like a marker rendition. Dracula looms above of Black Fury. What does this say? Ross? Looking at this credit here for this pinup. Anyone can figure out what that is, but we have a witch in a cauldron. It's another pinup. Nicely done. Yeet or treat. Which again, very nicely done pinup. Now, again, they ran out of space. They mentioned this in the editorial, and they ended up just squeezing these pinups in on the back. I thought this might have actually been, let's see, War Eagle, Daredevil, Black Fury, Return of the Golden Age. I thought this was very well done. I would have liked to have seen this actually as a full page illustration. Might have been worthy of replacing one of the others for this one, I think. But yeah, there was another pinup. I'm trying to, even though they didn't have the room for them, I'm trying to give them their just due on the screen. Black Fury's, the Fear Curse of Black Fury's Tome. Okay, and that's Black Fury kind of as a mummy. So, like I said, a lot of Black Fury. A little ad here for Comic Wellspring, which I'm guessing prints YEET. Okay, Comic Wellspring, well-known printer. As I said, then we came into the editorial page, and that pretty much wrapped it up for this issue of YEET. And as I said, YEET is on Patreon. Just checking, going to Patreon and plugging in YEET will get you to their page. And previously, I had not done any Patreon. I've backed a lot of Kickstarters. I haven't really done Indiegogo. Seems like the prices are a little high on Indiegogo. They were very high on Kickstarter as well at one point, and then competition had people bringing them down. So YEET is on Patreon, and a subscription will get you each issue being mailed to you. Again, I guess my biggest statement about YEET is the fact that I subscribe myself. So that's going to do it for this. Well, actually, let me just make mention that I do have my own Kickstarter going right now for Pink Puma and the Red Rooster. So again, maybe I'll put the links in the comments below for this Kickstarter. They're kind of frenemies, so they fight crime, but they also argue amongst each other. And Red Rooster, martial arts. He has also a hidden talent that you'll see within the book. And then Pink Puma is more like feline abilities, where she's very athletic. The tail is mechanical. She can control it. It's plugged into her nervous system. And, you know, she has agility and stuff like that. We also have an appearance by Weirdo in that book. So that is a character who has dimensional hopping abilities. He's actually not part of the Argo Comics universe, which is what Pink Puma and Red Rooster are Argo Comics characters. I have Weirdo as a Thunder Zone character. But again, you can go over to Kickstarter. I'll have the link, and you can check out that book. But that's going to wrap up this indie review. Keep coming back to Comic Frontline for all your comics news, reviews, and entertainment.